what is your weather there? Is it coming into the warmer type time, or is it still blistering
No,
cold
it's
in
it's warming
Massachusetts?
up, but in New England it takes a while.
Yeah.
It's kind of betwixt and between. It's not freezing anymore when you wake up in the morning, but you certainly still need a sweater or jacket most days.
But so New Orleans, born and raised, and then made the trek up north.
So I originally from Tennessee, moved to New Orleans at the beginning of eighth grade, stayed there through high school. Then I bounced around a lot for different jobs, but I moved to Boston first time for grad school, second time for work, and I've been here since 1999. So more than
What
25
is that?
years.
Um, is it because it's busy? Does it have everything you need? Is that kind of that where you like that vibe, or what is that attraction to the bigger city like that?
So originally it was for education. My husband went to college here and
Mm.
I went to grad school here. And then we moved back here for career. We both got good jobs here in the late 90s and we thought we'd be here for a couple of years. And now it's 2025 and here we are.
So that's what I was going to tell everyone because I want to hear about that. Folks, today I'm talking with Paige Arnof-Fenn, who's getting ready to bring me into her how she went from Wall Street to building a global branding powerhouse. And I do marketing for clients. I teach marketing, and I'm really excited to learn from you and learn about your journey into that because you have proved that reinvention is possible at any stage and we're going to look into your journey and some personal branding insights, and then some maybe a little tip on some strategic marketing that you can help with. So, thank you for being with us
Well,
today,
thank you
Paige.
for having me, Jeff. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, tell me, like, it's your like where you're at right now. What's kind of a day in your life look
I
like?
don't think there are any 2 days in my life that are the same anymore. I
Good.
started my company 23 years ago, and we work with a whole bunch of different clients. Um, all right, so I just froze. I don't know if that's going to.
There you go. You're
Okay,
good. It'll it jumps every now and then. Don't let that. It generally catches up if you
all
keep
right,
going. So don't stress on
I
that at
will
all.
keep
Yeah.
talking. Uh,
The technology sometimes technology I think mine and your personalities probably supersede it, so it's just catching up to you.
um, but yeah, I hung out a shingle 23 years ago and have been doing it independently ever since.
What your first part was? What was it 23 years ago?
So my marketing career's in three chapters. The first
Yeah,
chapter was more of a corporate job. I worked at
yeah.
Procter and Gamble and Coca-Cola, big marketing powerhouse companies, Fortune 500. Marketing is kind of the engine driving the machine. Very well recognized brands, big budgets. They're doing marketing and advertising somewhere in the world 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My second
Yeah.
chapter was more startup marketing, where I was the head of marketing at three different venture backed startups. They all had good exits, either went public, were sold, or maybe both, and then hung out a shingle and started my own marketing firm
I got you.
as the third chapter. But before I got into marketing, I was in finance. So I really have had quite the circuitous route, I guess.
Yeah. Walk us through you went into finance, and that's one of your major points of your story of how you started there. What was that like?
So my dad and both my grandfathers were commercial bankers. And so I always knew I wanted to go into business. And I thought my family had maybe a knack for banking. And so that's kind of the path I thought I was on. And my first job out of college, I took a job at a Wall Street firm in New York City. And what I realized was, even though I was very good at the work, it really wasn't something that uh, I loved as much as I had expected to love it. It was really grinding. very intense, super long days and nights. And just being good at work and getting paid well to do it wasn't really enough for me. But I had made a 2-year commitment. And so I stuck around for 2 years and then decided I wanted to go get an MBA and rebrand myself. So just like rebranding a business, I was rebranding my career path. So in business school, I took a marketing class my first semester and got the best grade in the class and realized, that's probably a good sign. And as
Yeah.
a girlfriend of mine who I worked with in investment banking in New York, she basically said to me she was going to go back into banking after business school, and she asked me if I wanted to too, and I said no way, Jose. I've had enough. Too intense, not fun enough. And she said, that's crazy. You're so good at it. Why wouldn't you come back to banking? And I said, I really didn't like the job that much. I mean, it paid great, but I really wasn't having fun. She said, there has to be something you like about this job. And I said, well, there were actually 3 things I really enjoyed about the job. When you finished a deal, when you finished a transaction, you got to take out ads in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. You got to plan a closing dinner. And because I was the junior person on the team, you got to buy a promotional toy to commemorate the transaction for everybody on the team. And my girlfriend said to me, Paige, it turns out you're not a finance person. You're actually a marketing person. The things that you like doing, advertising, event planning, and promotions, those are not finance activities. Those are marketing jobs. You should be in marketing. And then I took a
Yeah.
marketing class for the first time. I got a top grade, and I've been in marketing ever since.
Did you feel pushed to go into finance from your family's
I'm
influence?
sure that was it. I thought it was just expected of me, and I was always good in math. I was always good with numbers. And so I just, I never looked at law school or medical school. It never dawned on me to do anything other than banking and business. But having that uh, analytical training and being good with numbers is actually a huge competitive advantage in marketing. So it
Yes.
served me well to have that grounding.
You're spot on with that because just you know working with young folks, you're starting out and they're trying to figure out how to make money in marketing, and the very first ones that I work with are always like, I'm like, okay, what are you gonna charge? Well, this my friend's paying $500 for a social media manager and I'm gonna do it for 450, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so let's talk about what that looks like, and then setting down and crafting that revenue plan that of what it takes to make money in business, and it helps them find this realization, kind of like some light bulb moments of. So you're absolutely right, Paige, with your background and just knowing numbers and knowing what it takes to operate business and all those things. And then you, from the marketing standpoint, is so now when I'm mentoring on the other side for the business owner and they'll get approached by someone in marketing, as I always tell my business owners, like, always ask if someone's pitching to you, just like, hey, what's your budgets that you've managed? How much dollars, advertising or marketing dollars, have you managed? And I said, see what the person who's pitching to you tells you, because it matters. If they haven't managed, whatever your budget is, or a 6-figure marketing budget, or what have you, you have to know that, and it's good to know that up front. If not, you're going to the expectations are not going to meet the finished product. You end up really
And
frustrated.
also, you've got to be a brand today. I think if we learned anything during COVID, if you're not a brand, you're a commodity, and commodities compete on price. And like you said, if your only strategy is to undercut your competition, that's not a sustainable business model.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you just keep cutting your price, it's going to be a downward spiral. So you really want to establish yourself as a coveted brand. that is unique, special, and different, and that people remember you, they trust you, they like you. Because if you're a brand, people are willing to pay more for brands. And that's really your competitive advantage today. And we haven't even talked about artificial intelligence yet. But with all the
No.
AI tools and technologies, there's just so much generic robotic copy out there that if you're using the same keywords and the same hashtags and the same old as everyone else, you're not going to be a brand that people can remember. You're just going to blend into the sea of sameness. And what you want is to own real estate in your customer or client's brain so that when they have a problem that you can help them solve, they think of your product or service first. And if you own that real estate, you're a brand that people are willing to pay for. And that's where you have a real business model in the economy today.
That's you can't, like, folks, if you're in business, hit rewind, go back, hit back 2 times, 3 times, and listen to that again, because that's just pure gold and advice, because it gets overlooked. And there's always a little hesitancy too, that and some of the business owners I work with, about being the face of that brand. And I teach this, and I got to speak to it the other day on a panel I was on about the business owner. There's no bigger influencer in a business than the business owner. And I'm like, you're like, that's so I'll get these calls like, Jeff, I want to hire an influencer for my business. I'm like, why don't I teach you how to be the influencer? And they're like, I don't know how to do that. And I go, I do. Let me show you how to do that. And because I'm like, you are the authority, and you know how it is when you go into, if I like today, I'm talking to the owner. I am talking to the owner of Mavens and Moguls, right? That's a big deal to say that you know the owner, you're talking to them. So, and then I go back into what that business owner means to some communities, and it's leadership. It's their risk takers. They're creating jobs and economic impact, and their taxes are fueling the schools and all those things that goes into just being an entrepreneur in your community. um, and kind of that don't be so quick to hand off that authority to someone else to either. So I kind of preach that a
And
lot too.
it's so important. And a lot of people come to me and they say, I'm not LeBron James or Taylor Swift or Serena Williams or Beyonce. I'm not really a brand. I just have this company. And like you said, there are much more important influencers out there. But that's not the right attitude, as you were saying. And, you and I live every day. Everybody's a brand today. And if you own a business, if you're the company owner, you are very much a brand and you're associated very tightly with your company brand. And so you really need to
Yeah.
be very deliberate and intentional about building a brand that you want to stand for. What's your mission, vision, values? Because you're going to be attracting customers and clients who have the same values as you do. And that's definitely the best way to build a sustainable business today, where you can charge more and again be more valuable to the people that believe in the same core tenets and they have the same business goals and strategies as you do. Those are going to make your company the most sustainable and the most successful over the long.
One of my one of my favorite questions to ask is, what are you selling? And to any, like, if you go into a if we go into a a furniture store, it's what do you sell? Oh, we sell couches. I said, no. I'm like, no. And really make the business owner. I use this in my coffee shops. I use that tactic when I'm teaching or whatever. And I go around the room, and I have this little exercise where I do of like, what are you selling? And everybody always throws that product out, and I'm like, well, but what are you selling? And finally, like the good ones, I had an auto mechanic, and he sold tires. And he's like, I sell tires. I'm going, what do you sell? And he was like, well, installation. And I was like, nah, come on now, keep going, keep getting work. And so we got to going. And by the time me and him was done, He sold safety. He sold comfort. He sold a peace of mind. Because I was telling him, like, as a dad, and put my, going to shop tires for our car with after my kids were born. Like, this is a big deal for me to make sure that I'm on the safest absolute tires. Like, so that's where we got the exercise going. And man, that room came to life with people just talking about the clothing store lady was like, I sell a feeling, I sell appeal. So we went from clothes into just the emotion that they were transferring.
Absolutely. I mean,
People overlook
a
that.
brand is a promise and it's an emotional connection to your target audience. And like you said, there are a lot of car companies out there. But when you look at a Volvo sells safety. That is their hook. The reason why a lot of parents with small children buy Volvos is because they are known for being really safe cars. So, it is, are you saving people time? Are you more convenient? Or is it peace of mind? Do they feel better about themselves? Harley Davidson is not just selling motorcycles, they're selling a whole sense of adventure. That's
Yeah, attitude,
sorry.
attitude, right? They're selling attitude. Yeah, yeah.
And Disney, it's not just Mickey Mouse and roller coasters. It's creativity. It's these amazing memories with your family. um, think about it. In marketing, you talk about features and benefits. You're not selling the features. It's not about the shiny objects. It's how does it benefit your target audience? What are they
Yep.
getting out of it? What's in it for them? And if you can answer that question, like you said, that's how you touch people emotionally and connect with them so that they build a relationship with you and that you really do own that real estate and they think of you first. If you do that, that's when the magic really starts to happen.
Sell the outcome and the emotion. It's kind of what I tell people to approach it. Sell the end. And I worked in some unique industries to where there's not sometimes emotions not associated with it, and I help people figure out that um, those areas where they can improve, and what you talk about, Paige, there spills into, then it starts to compound into their customer service, into their operations, into how their flows, how they their culture. It all kind of starts with what you saying of crafting that message, and then that drives their culture. So if I can get you to do your core values and your mission statement, and we can craft this around this, what you're talking about drives the rest of the machine.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the airline industry. It's not just about the steel planes and the getting you from point A to point B. If I were to blindfold you and sit you on a seat on an airplane and you couldn't see what the name was on the outside, I will bet you if you were on a Southwest airline, you would know it was Southwest because it is the culture of the people that they hire and what's in the air and the water there. They don't just read you, uh, your passenger rights and tell you to fasten your seatbelt and sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah 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 wah.
Yeah,
they
that's
they
right.
have their personality and they don't have to just follow the rules. They can be human and have conversations and be silly and be funny, and that's a different experience. Think about the customer experience with your brand. If it's just generic, if it's just the same old, that is not really taking advantage of the branding that you and I know works. And that's really, again, where the magic happens. That's when people, when they're trying to buy a car or fly from point A to point B, that they're actually looking for you because they know it's going to be more fun, more safe, more exciting. And it's not necessarily the cheapest, although if you're price competitive and you offer all these extras, that things that I value and that improve the quality of my life, I'm always going to pick you first.
Yeah. What was it when you moved into Procter Gamble? Was one of your first jobs before you got into doing your own thing? What was it like working? That's not folks Procter Gamble. It's a big company. There's a lot of noise, and there's probably a lot of people on that marketing team. What was that? What was that like for your experience? What was that like for you?
So P&G is probably the most successful consumer products packaged goods company in the world. In every category they compete in, their products are number one and sometimes also number two. And, it's Tide detergent, it's Oil of Olay, it's Pampers, Charmin. These are household names. And they're really good at it. I mean, they invented the concept of brand management, treating a brand like a business. And, they just drill it into you. They have a process for everything. They invented it and they're really good at it. So my first job out of business school, I was there for about 3.5 years. And I may have gotten my MBA at Harvard, but I got my PhD in marketing at Procter and Gamble because,
Right.
they really just kick it into you. I don't think I realized at the time I would not have described myself as being entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial in a company. But I think if you had talked to any of my bosses during my P&G time, they would tell you she's a really hard worker, very smart girl. But I got to tell you, she was always trying to bend, break, and change the rules. She drove me crazy. And when you work for a company like P&G or Coke that have been very successful for decades, if not 100 years, they're not looking for people to reinvent the wheel. They just want you to do it their way because they know their way works. They want you to do market research in a specific way, quantitative, qualitative research. They want you to do the packaging, the pricing, the promotion. They have a system for everything. And I often would come into my boss's office and say, hey, I've got a good idea. Why don't we think about it this way? Or let's try this. And my boss would shake his head and say, no, Paige, we're not going to do it a new way. We're going to do it the P&G way. That's how it's done here. And so I often found myself pretty frustrated. And
Yeah, I can see that.
now looking back, I'm actually amazed I was as successful as I was in that kind of hierarchical structured environment, because now I can see the reason why I've now worked for myself longer than I lasted in any of those companies. It makes perfect
Really?
sense to me now.
All right, so just timeline me here, just so because I like to summarize a couple key points for folks. What year are you going into work at Procter Gamble?
So I started P&G in 1990 as a summer intern, and then I went back in 91 after
Yep.
graduation and left in 94.
So to qualify, just to let folks know, because I try to tell everyone, like I'm fortunate enough that I came along in marketing right as not everybody had a website,
Right?
right? The smart ones did. The ones that knew that they wanted to survive were like, hey, I need to get an IT person in here, somebody who understands digital footprint. You worked during a time where we're heavily focused on TV, we are heavily focused on radio, your magazines and print was a big deal. So, very folks, just so you understand, so I could totally see here you are coming in, and PG or P&G knows what they know because it has led them to where they are because it's wrench washing to duplicate. We didn't have phones in our pockets that have all of our things, right? So I could totally see your manager saying, we don't think out of the box here because this is the way we do things every day.
And you're
Just
absolutely
because of what the
you're
climate was.
absolutely right. There was television, print, radio, outdoor. Those
Yep.
were the line items. There was no streaming. There was no cable. There was no, I mean, you know, no social media, no online marketing, no e-commerce. This was the dark ages.
This is before Craigslist,
Exactly.
folks. Craigslist is one of our originals, right? This is but then here you I can see I worked in a couple spots um or in the 90s to where I had met that myself, to where it's like, well, why we do it like this? Well, it's because we've always done it. I'm like, yeah, then this ain't working. We got to change and we have to move forward. Um, I could really see you lighting a fire, and they probably talk about you today like you're just like, yeah, Paige, she came in and tried to change how we do everything, because that was me in a lot of my cases, because I was like, there's a different way to do this now.
Yeah, and my first internet job was in 1997, so kind of internet 1.0. And
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
you know,
it's so good.
and back then, I worked for a startup. We raised, tens of millions of dollars. A lot of it was for marketing. And, the internet was, people didn't all have high speed internet access back then. And so
Not
we,
the,
we delivered our product on a CD-ROM so that people could
yeah.
have a good online experience. But now again, that seems like the dark ages. Again, people were not walking around with a million platforms on their phone in their pocket. That was not reality back then. But when you're working for an internet startup, you don't have the luxury of doing market research for 6 or 9 months the way you might do it at a big corporate job. You were doing
Yeah.
stuff in real time, intercepting people on the street, asking them questions, giving them some swag, and incorporating their feedback in real time, putting it up on your website, seeing if you're getting the click throughs. And if you don't get the click throughs overnight, you change it the next day. So we were doing really quick and dirty, seat of the pants research, and it was not statistically significant the way that we weren't without we maybe a dozen people, and kind of just pivoting on a real-time basis, because when you're working for an internet company, you don't have the luxury of waiting 6 or 9 months to make a decision. If you did that, you'd probably be out of business.
Yeah. How much in today's climate, Page, because you touched on something. And I go into this with some of my clients because they don't, the research part is most time it's jumped over. Let's just get the business, get a Facebook ad up. How much do you encourage market research now in today's climate?
So it's interesting. It's a great question. Before COVID, so at P&G and Coke, you don't ever do anything without significant market research. When I hung out a shingle, I would tell clients beneficial survey monkey, but a lot of they need, let's just jump in and get going. But I'll tell you, if one great thing, whoops, are you there, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here.
Hello.
I'm listening.
Okay. My screen went blank. I'll keep talking. Um, so basically, with COVID, everybody now understood that, um, the world has changed, and any assumptions
Yes, you're walking down my list of things that if we didn't get to it, I was going to go. And that's one of the big ones, Paige, that I had was, that your the friend is making on your market research side is that mistake that we make of because your friends like they don't mind spending your money, they want you to succeed. But I also tell people I had this happen here recently, and the lady was like, "Yeah, well, my friend said," and I go, how much product has your friends bought? And she goes, none. And I was like, see, right? I was like, they just tell you what you want to hear at the time. That's worse. I'm like, they because they want you to feel good. They're their friend. It's not but but they how many of their products? She's like, well, you're right. They haven't bought any. And I go, see? Um and then the other one was I had another lady got some feedback from a friend who was like, well, I wouldn't pay that much for it and for her product, and I saw the value. I knew the value of the product, and so we were trying to work through that because it really had frustrated her, and she was kicking the can. And let me ask you this: did you just show your product to your friend and ask her what she paid? She goes, yeah. The first thing she said, I can go to Amazon, I'll do this, and I would never pay that price for this. And I go, all right. I said, when you see her next, tell her the problem it solves. Then ask her what she'll pay for it. And she just stopped and she was like, well, hold on. I didn't, she goes, I just held it up. And I go, exactly. She didn't get to understand. You didn't sell her on the outcome. And I'm like, cause I teach sales and people I don't want to be salesy, Jeff. I don't want to be greasy. I'm like, no, 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 no. You're selling the outcome. You're selling the feeling or that emotion. That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. What's in that noisy world of standing out in that crowd, what's that piece of advice that we can leave that business owner with that is like if it is I still have clients, Paige, I'll tee you up with this, is I still have clients that think I got a website. Right, but Jeff, I have a website, and I go, yeah, it used to be back. Yeah, man, if you go back to 2000, if you had a website, you're the main money maker. I'm like everybody. I'm like these days. I tell people, I'm like, yeah, you don't really need a website because it's too noisy. It's a fish you have to clean. Let's focus on relationships and referrals first before you even go into the web. Right. Yep. it's a big deal. And I think as we wrap up here, I would say if you're struggling with that, Paige is someone who can help. And so that lets us gets us in the moment of who is your ideal client, Paige, and how would you like for them to get in touch with you? Yeah, Page Mavens. That's right. That'll be your next acronym or your next DBA or name. It'll be Page Maven. Um, um, I absolutely feel like you and I could talk on for hours just because of yeah, yeah. My interest in I love pointing out to my friends sometimes that I'm like, you're being marketed to because they'll get, they'll start taking on, and I see it, whether it's in, influencers on, if you're scrolling, Twitter, you're going to see those political influencers that are there to help get those conversations, moving along. And I remind my buddies sometimes when they're talking about something, I'm like, yeah, man, you were marketed to, so don't, don't get so twisted around the axle, but, um, I just wanted to thank you for taking a few minutes, let us learn about you, give me the opportunity to connect with you, and then hopefully amplify your message. And I cannot stress enough to folks that don't sleep in this area. Make sure if you don't know what you're doing, or if you got a team or whatever who's kind of struggling to find your voice, make sure you connect with an expert like Paige that can help collapse time and get your business out to the rest of the world, because that's a big deal. That's where you find your money, you find your profits, you find your growth. Yeah. Thanks for being with us, Paige. Yeah.